Blown machine! The next stop on our Ghost Town Route 66 Death of the American Dream Tour is GLENRIO, the infamous town straddling the Texas-New Mexico border on Route 66, now Route 40. New Mexico, wet, buy booze, Texas, dry. But the gas was cheaper. So in this town, you're gonna see liquor stores on one side, gas stations on the other, and that little black road you see right there, that is Route 66 we are running parallel with. There's the 18-wheeler graveyard you saw in my Vega video going back from GLENRIO, but now we are going to GLENRIO. So there it is again from the other angle.
There ain't no wind down that hole headed toward the end. Someone screams out, sad goodbye. I guess this ain't the worst place to die.
So we're getting close to the New Mexico border here, but we're about to hit Adrian, Texas. Adrian is the halfway point of Route 66. And a few years ago, me, Tom, and Damien stopped right here to get some coffee at the midway point before heading on to GLENRIO. This is the third time I'm going to GLENRIO. I can't imagine too many people from central New Jersey can claim that. So if you drive down the cracked asphalt of old Route 66, right here, where the Texas Panhandle meets New Mexico, you will roll into this town where time is completely stopped. It is GLENRIO. One of a kind, today a silent stretch of overgrown weeds and skeletons of buildings, home to a permanent population of just one. But 50 years ago, this was the oasis. Thousands of travelers stopped here, chasing that American dream west. Arguably the coolest point in American history. Now, I don't know if this graveyard is actually part of GLENRIO, but it's what you pass as you go over the overpass into deeper GLENRIO. I don't know what all these abandoned box trucks are doing out here. I know they have a big problem with human trafficking on 40, and these abandoned trucks are pretty creepy to see. The outskirts of GLENRIO.
You don't know me, but I know you. You're in my nightmares, you're in the clouds. You're the steering ship that's gonna drag me down.
Last time we were here, hundreds of cliff swallows had made this their home. We thought they were bats from down the road, but these little cute birds, they build their little nests out of mud. I don't know where they find mud around here because it's dry as hell, but they did it. I'm gonna guess that they're migratory because there was no sign of them this time.
There ain't no magic in the sky. Guess this ain't the worst place to die. Guess this ain't.
Somehow it looks like it's in worse shape.
Used to be an outlet or something. Glass everywhere.
I ran out of excuses.
A lot of glass.
I made a choice. You can call me the devil to help you feel that.
Do some commentary. The last bastion of freedom. The end of America.
We found it. It's GLENRIO.
Just call it there.
Didn't I find snakes back here last time?
Dancing around the big sky now. Just trying to calm the fire down. Just trying to calm the fire down. Never said I was perfect. I'm more sinner than saint. the shit that I've done.
I don't know. This looks like a place I'm gonna get attacked by a rattlesnake at any second.
So don't talk about Jesus. Your tongue is a curse. Your love is a death wish. Your body a bag of dirt.
Photo to the world, man.
Dancing around the big sky.
The window right into the world.
Just trying to calm the fire down. Just trying to calm the fire down.
Here we are.
Half wolf, half bundle wolf. Jump out of the back.
Don't pray for me. Don't pray for me.
A Doberman just jumped out of that truck.
Don't pray.
GLENRIO's story began in 1903 as a rugged water stop for the Rock Island Railroad. Its name combined the Scottish word for valley, Glen, with the Spanish word for river, Rio. And ironically, it sat next to neither. What was there, though, was the state line. Straddling two states created some of the most fascinating business loopholes in American history. Texas's Deaf Smith County was dry, so entrepreneurs built the bars and dance halls on the New Mexico side. But New Mexico had a higher gas tax, so all the service stations were built just a few yards away on the Texas side. That house you're seeing right there behind the service station, that was built in 1950 by Joe Brownlee. He also owned and ran the State Line Bar. In this home, he lived with his wife Roxy and his daughter Roxanne in the 1930s bungalow that somehow is still standing there today. Roxanne is actually the town's last real resident, and she still lives in that old bungalow. Interestingly, her husband was murdered during a robbery in 1976 back at one of the old gas stations in Adrian. And that Pontiac that's still sitting there under the service station, well, that belonged to old Joe Brownlee, and it's been sitting there since 1968.
You can call me the devil to help you fill that void.
I wasn't lying when I said thousands of people used to come here. Look at this postcard I found. This is this exact spot. Look at those happy people. Now, the first time Thom and I came to GLENRIO was about 9 years ago. The whole place looked like nobody had been there in 100 years, a total wasteland. Then a couple years ago, they legalized weed in New Mexico. You're going to see the spot in a couple minutes right across the state line where they sell weed now, and all of a sudden, all this got cleared out, so we were terrified all of GLENRIO was going to get knocked over. But luckily, it still stands.
All right, we are now in the thriving metropolis of GLENRIO. Is this New Mexico or Texas?
Half Texas, half New Mexico.
Copy.
Once you walk past that, it's New Mexico. It's Texas on the side.
New Mexico, Texas. All right.
Before Route 66, there was the Ozark Trail, a dirt road that was then paved and became Route 66 in 1926. And that's when GLENRIO blossomed, transformed from a tiny little rail town into a huge motorist haven. During the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, desperate families packed everything away into old Fords and steamed through GLENRIO towards California. And wouldn't you know it, John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath even filmed a couple scenes right here in 1940. By the 50s, the town was a mid-century spectacle. Cars lined up 4 deep for gas, flashy Art Deco diners like the Little Juarez Cafe fed the hungry families on the road, and the Texas Longhorn Motel famously greeted drivers with a sign that read, "Last motel in Texas," or "First motel in Texas," depending on which direction you were headed. Now, this may be hard to believe, but I found a plot layout of GLENRIO, New Mexico. In this layout, you could see a hotel, grocery store, bakery, post office, barber shop, blacksmith shop, feed store, Methodist church, and a school, all added by 1912. Another fun fact is that while Adrian is the halfway point of Route 66 from Chicago to California, GLENRIO is the halfway point between Amarillo and Tucumcari. So it was a perfect place for travelers to stop and get a bite to eat. Or, if you had a dad like mine, you might have finally been able to convince him to pull over before you peed your pants.
He's trying to calm the fire down.
So we're right on the line in the middle of nowhere. You can see the highway, Route 40, behind me. So this was a gas station town, a cafe town, I don't know, 80 years ago. And since then, it's been completely forgotten. You can actually see the sign to New Mexico. So we're here checking it out because this town actually had an infusion of money put into it when they legalized weed 40 feet away from here in New Mexico. So now everybody comes here to buy their gummies and their weed. And there's supposed to be a big tourism industry. But other than that, it doesn't really look like anybody's here.
GLENRIO, even though they had big plans for this town, the population never rose above 30. Most of the residents made their living from the tourism industry off Route 66. But then, when Interstate 40 was built, the community basically was cooked. Their fate was sealed.
I thought for sure I'd find a rattlesnake here, but I guess not.
The Rock Island Railroad, which was why this whole thing started in the first place, closed its depot in 1955. By 1985, the Texas Post Office was the only business open, but it has been closed for a long time now.
Someone screams out, sad goodbye. I guess this ain't the worst place to die.
So watch out for that hole. Actually, the floor feels pretty solid.
My head and I cut my teeth at the funeral pyre where they buried me. Sang a song with a ghost I knew. He said, hurry up, man, they're waiting on you. Under a different set of circumstance, bet my last buck and take my chance. Falling
Like a roadrunner.
as time moves slow. Sorry, friend, this ain't no way to go.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
I'll record you.
Thank you. It's already recorded. Thanks.
Jesse Lynn, I wrote a song for you. You don't know me.
Yo, we got a bone machine on the wall, dog.
There you go.
Hell yeah.
Video too.
Thanks a lot.
You're in my
Yeah, have a good one.
You're in clouds. You're the steering
Look, you can
ship.
see the state line between Texas and New Mexico right here on the street.
I don't know much about the
See where that pavement changes?
folks who pray, say it's where.
Alright, so what I'm walking to right now is what kick-started this whole industry. When we got legalized here, they put this is as close as you could get to Texas. I know they run tours and stuff here. I don't see anybody. I guess it's not open yet, but this is what it looks like. Well, there you go. You have your birthday, bar mitzvah, wedding right here in New Mexico on the state line of Texas, and you can all get high as hell legally. But if you cross 1 inch over that border into Texas, each one of those gummies is a 5-year felony. You can walk around with an AR-15 anywhere you want, totally cool. One weed gummy, you're going to jail forever. But that's freedom, baby.
I ran out of excuses.
We're about to cross back over into Texas. You can see the street right here.
To help you fill that void.
Blacktop, Texas.
Devil
Crag,
answer.
New Mexico. Signing out from GLENRIO, New Mexico. Hell yeah.
Once Interstate 40 was built and bypassed Route 66, GLENRIO was toast. Which is ironic because the car culture built this town and cemented its legacy, and then it also killed it. Almost overnight, the traffic vanished, gas stations shut their lights off, diners closed, families started pulling up their stakes and moving elsewhere. Today, GLENRIO is preserved on on the National Register of Historic Places. It's a monument to the golden age of the open road, the thing all Americans feel inside of us, all young men and women. When the first spring day hits and you look outside and you just dream and feel that pull in your soul to go west, the Mother Road. That was the place we used to go to get there, and now it hangs like a whisper on a desert wind, never to return again.
So don't talk about Jesus when your tongue is a curse. Your love is a death wish.